Hello, good day, and let's begin MCN 301. So, this is Mass Communication and Politics, and of course, today we'll be looking at our very first lesson, which is Introduction to Political Communication. And I want us to sort of reimagine power and understand the concept of public sphere and, of course, the concept of mediation. Yeah. So, basically, today we have a connection between power, the public, and mediation. There is this how do I explain this now? There is this interconnection between the power that be the institutional powers. There is that connection. It's connect also with the current conversations that is happening wherever it is happening, online, offline, in a public space, at a beer parlor, and more. And at the same time, this same conversation transcends beyond that, and it is having some, impacts, reports, and there is a reproduction of these conversations on social media, on news media, and more. So we need to understand the connection between power, the public, let's say, who are speaking through the public sphere, and of course, the mediation. Okay, I'll make this bigger. Yes. Okay, so we talked about political communication is the allocation of power and resources. So you are trying to understand how power is connected to the public and how they are using mediation to make all of these impacts. So there is this triangular relationship. So okay, this is a bad drawing. All right. So we'll put power right here at the top, and then we have the people, let's say the public, and then we have the media. The media here. So in the real sense of things, we have power at the top, then the media, who is the mediator, the mediator, and then the people. I don't know why my pen is not writing so well. And then we have the people. Terrible spelling. All right. So I understand that that is not so clear. Mm, it's not so clear. So, well, that's where we are at the moment. The power. Imagine, think about the need for the powerful to remain powerful. They need the media to communicate with the people, and the people also use the same media, maybe different form of media, online media, open media, social media, to get back and to feedback to the government. And again, the access to the traditional media is limited. And we can see from recent data and from my own research that statistics shows that the elite has most influence on traditional media. Their voices are often heard, while the voices of the minorities are sort of, fading away. This we must acknowledge. Now, moving on, think about the chaos. Now we know that there is a struggle for voices to be heard, struggle for who is controlling the narrative. So you see where mass com and politics is coming together. We know politics as allocation of power and resources, allocation of power and resources. And in order for you to allocate power, you need to go through certain procedures, understand certain principles, and of course, it has to be communicative itself, because communication helps you pass that message across. Now, mass communication either have control over what you use to speak to many, have control over what they know, what they think about, and how they think about things. That's speaking to agenda setting, speaking to framing theory. Now, let's take another leap of things. The chaos of power. Again, I'm still welcoming you to mass communication and politics. This course operates at the chaotic, fast-paced intersection of public persuasion, because anyone who speaks through the any medium of mass communication is trying to persuade the other person who is receiving it. You're not just speaking to speak, you're speaking to communicate. And the purpose of communication is to make an impact. How do you make an impact? You share meaning. When you share meaning, the message is received, decoded, and used. And yes, it is sort of fast-paced intersection between public persuasion, media architecture, and raw power. And take note of this quote that power is useless if it cannot be communicated. And communication is powerless if it cannot negotiate, influence, or maintain system of authority. So you use communication to maintain power, to keep power. You use communication to retain your authority. In the olden days, we've got the kings. They use the town crier, send them to the market square to make an announcement. It's authoritative. Each time you hear the gong sound, you know this information is coming from the palace, and that was the way to communicate. The If you recall, also during military junta, military coup, one of the infrastructures that the military leaders who wants to take over power capture is also the media. So they use the media to announce that, oh, we are hereby taking over the government, and then the whole people will be aware that they are under new control. You understand what that means now? So what this also implies is that power is useless if it cannot be communicated. So the moment they seize power, they communicate it. And communication is powerless if it cannot be used to negotiate, influence, and maintain system of authority. So you see how powerful communication is. So there is a chaos in the context of politics, engaging the public, and of course the struggle for power. Different media, different rotation, reporting the same story will report it differently because they are contesting and competing interests. They are competing powers. They are competing authorities who wants to use the communicative process to establish their own interest. So this you must know as a mass communication student. Again, when you view political campaign, a media broadcast, or a viral meme, you need to begin to train your mind to bypass the superficial questions. Like, do I agree with this message, or do I disagree with such message? Instead, you need to start asking more critical questions such as why, whose, and then what. Don't forget that communication is connected to power. Your ability to communicate effectively will help you achieve persuasive effects that will make people legitimize you, believe in you, trust you, and give you that influence. So this course is sitting at a chaotic intersection I want you to know that it's going to be sensitive. You agree with some things, you disagree with some things. It will open your eyes and your understanding as per how to think about things. Okay, now the why. The question is, you begin to ask when next you see any form of information. Anytime you're sitting before your screen, reading newspapers, reading, watching the news, listening to radio, ask yourself, why am I seeing this particular narrative at this exact moment? Why? Why? If you are able to provide an answer to this, then you are beginning to navigate through a process that will help you comprehend the intent of such message. Again, all right. And then the next thing you want to do is to ask yourself the question of whose political or economic interest this is serving. Whose economic interest is this serving? Whose political interest is this serving? You know, for instance, you're watching something in news content. Were you provoked? Were you bitter? Were you angry? Or did you begin to have a sense of hope or a sense of fear in response to the content? If yes, it means it is achieving its purpose directly or indirectly. So if it is, then it must be serving some form of interest. Yes. Somebody is behind the scene trying to reach you. But if you are not aware, you will be reached and you will react, but you won't know why you have reacted the way you have reacted. So these are some of the behind the scene knowledge that a professional communicator should be aware of. The third one is what? What has been systematically omitted from the frame? What do we know? What don't we know? What do we know? Or what don't we know? So, for instance, what has been systematically omitted from the frame? What has been left out? What could have made it in but didn't? This is another question to answer. Bypassing past information. So you need to be an active consumer of information. Be an active decoder of content in order for you to achieve a full understanding, if not all, most understanding. Okay, think about it. What was the last content that you engaged with? And ask yourself the question, even for the next video that you will see, what is the intent? Why are you saying that? Whose interest does this have? And what could have been removed? Whose voice could have been left? Okay. All right. So this is a key secret to decoding the news. All right. Let's take another step further. I'm still introducing the course, and it's more or less like a calm conversation, because at some point we would get to the heat of the matter. So, right. So what you are going to master today is that by the end of this course, you should be able to discuss the foundational relationship between communication flows, political power, structures, and then you will be able to trace the evolutionary trajectory of political communication in Nigeria. You from the pre-colonial era to the current era, to from colonial oral culture, and of course to the modern agglomeratic era that we are in now. So these are some of those stages that you will, you walk that this particular lecture is going to walk you through. You'll be able to identify some structural paradoxes of conducting democratic discourse within the profit-driven and state-controlled communication ecosystem. Interest, like I mentioned, will always be there, and it varies from place to place. So, and then you'll be able to map and explain the interactive dynamics of the democratic triad and understand the process of mediatization. And lastly, which is this, is that you will be able to critically contrast between um, political communication dynamics across Nigeria, continental Africa, and global paradigm. Okay, all right. So let's talk about negotiation of power via symbols. So in the early days, people communicate via symbols. I remember seeing some movies in my early years where we see Yoruba, Nollywood, Yoruba, where we have maybe a king of a particular town would send a message. It could be a cutlass with some red stuff around it, or a cutlass with blood. This is sign of war. And we've seen instances where you all you need to do is to wave your white material to show peace. So political communication is the intentional allocation, negotiation, and contestation of public resources and power through symbolic means. This is according to Omotosho 2021. Now, why have I brought this in? And if you recall earlier, I talked about policy's allocation of power and resources. You see the same context working in now. You see resources, you see power. Resources and power. Resources and power. Now, that's if you have resources and you don't have power, you'll be limited. If you have power and you don't have resources, you will also be limited. So you need both power and resources to thrive. So now, political communication is the intentional allocation, negotiation, and contestation of public resources through symbolic means. Now, in traditional political science, communication was treated as mere transmission belts, like a conveyor belt. But in modern mass communication theory, this has been rejected, arguing that media environment is a battlefield. There is back and forth, there's an engagement, there's decoding, encoding, decoding, encoding, clarification of ideas and more. Well, in fact, even within the political context, political reality is being constructed, is being framed, and is being contested. So take note of the fact that it is constructed, it is framed, and it is contested. So constructed, framed, and contested. So yeah, pay attention to that. It is constructed, meaning that meaning can be constructed, meaning that meaning can be framed, meaning that meaning can be contested. So if you are a passive consumer, you may not be able to contest it. You may be a consumer of a framed content, and some content might have been constructed just targeted at you. So understand what political communication means in this context. Okay, now Manuel Castells wrote on network power. And he wrote this, and I'll read out, and I quote. He said, the fundamental form of power in the network society lies in the control of communication and information network. Power in network society is communication power. Power in network society is communication power exercised through programming of network and switching of connections between networks. Whoever controls the networks control the minds of the people, and thus the key to social change. You see, whosoever that controls the network, whosoever that controls the networks controls the mind of the people. If you control the network, you control the mind of the people. So take note of this. Take note of this. If you're controlling the network, then you have power to control the mind of the people. This is the essence, the argument of media framing. That if you got the power to set the agenda, to determine what people see, it means you have the power to determine what they get to know, to even what becomes the agenda of what they even get to talk about. And then the second level of agenda setting theory then takes us to the level of framing, which is the second level agenda setting. You are no longer just telling them what to think about, but you are now framing them and telling them how to think about what you have already told them or shared with them to think about. So the one who has control over the most people, the network, the algorithm, has a control over their mind, because you're working with everything data, and everything data is powerful. Okay, now let's talk about the dynamics of the Nigerian situation. So in Nigeria, political communication has always been highly relational. Yes, it is relational. We've got ethnic configurations, regional issues. There's been need to balance between culture, because Nigeria is a multi-ethnic society, very diverse in all sense of it. It is deeply bound up with historical questions of ethnic representation, regional balancing, and profound public skepticism towards um, both the state apparatus and also media channel that itself. So we've got regional newspapers, ethnic newspapers. In some sense, for every publication, you will find that element of their ethnic. We have there's what they call the Ingbati press. Ingbati press means the Yoruba press. And then we have the Arewa press, Arewa media, Arewa forum. You understand? The Northern voice. And so these are some elements, and also it's also shaped by the owners of the media. If you Yoruba, or if someone who is politically aligned to a party is going to take the coloration of the interest of the owner, directly or indirectly. So in Nigeria, we have to understand how power is communicated, and one must be able to dissect the political economy of the media and the cultural context of its audience. So in Nigeria, political communication is deeply relational and is tied to ethnic representation, tied to history, tied to politics, tied to interests. So These are some of the dynamics that you should be aware of. Okay. Now, I talked about the democratic triad, which is a core aspect of this conversation. Political communication functions as an ongoing three-way interactive echo-mediated system through the public sphere. And of course, it's a triad. We have the political organizations, we have the media gatekeepers, and we have the citizen. You know, they are they are connected. Now, this triad, do not forget, political organizations, media gatekeepers, the citizen. The political organizations are the political class, the candidates, the parties, the civil groups, and more. The media gatekeepers, they are the publishers, the editors, the journalists. In the new media climate, the algorithm. And then we have the citizen, the voters, the consumers, the community, the common man. So, and you have to start bringing your lens into this. What will be the interest of the political organization to remain in power? What will be the interest of the media gatekeeper to remain in business? What will be the concern of the citizen? Of course, to live better life, to have better life, basic social amenities, stable economy, and more. So these are competing interests. So everybody have interest that they are pursuing. So let's introduce the core analytical model, the democratic triad. It's showing the flow of public sphere. In the public sphere, the people there is some conversation around what the media has been published, what the policies is saying, the political class is saying, and what sense the citizens are making. And they are criticizing, some going for and against, and some stay in the media, and some not even contributing at all. People from different background with different knowledge, with different connections and level of knowledge. So this is a triad. We're introducing this course still. This is the introduction. So this is our core model that will be basing every other conversation around. Now, Jesper Strömbäck on mediatization shared and he wrote, and I quote, mediatization of politics is a long-term process through which importance of mass media and their spillover effects on political process institutions, organizations, and actors increase. At its further stage, political actors do not adapt to media logic, but they internalize it so completely that the media logic become an integral part of the political process themselves. This was in 2008, and you find this on page 223 of Strömbäck's work. Take this in, process it. There's a difference between media logic and political action, and this triad operates within the context of mediatisation, just as Jesper defined it. Okay. If you have any question around that quotation, please ask. Now, let's consider the first triad, which is the element A of the triad. The political organizations, that is the political actors, the actors. We have the political parties such as APC, PDP, Labour Party, and they have candidates. We have civil society groups and interest groups, and the objective is to capture power. Like I've rightly said, the objective is to enact legislative agendas to secure public legitimacy and, of course, to control the narrative. Now, the Nigerian reality is that communication is frequently structured around ethno-religious balancing. Yes, that is the configuration. That's how the colonial masters saw it and how they wanted to arrange it. The division, in fact, the River Niger River Benue division did its own natural thing, and then human also did its own natural thing. So now, the ethno-religious balancing played out. Regional alliance also played out, and the highly managed intra and inter-party narratives also played out. People, party within party policies, ideology not really grounded. The substance is often secondary to even the display of their physical strength, their state authority, and of course their grassroots alignments. So I would like us to begin to engage. What's coming to your mind at this point? If the goal of the political actor is always to capture power, we need to start discussing how these structural actors how they deploy their regional alliances, how they deploy their regional alliances. Okay, all right. So let's look at element B. The second vector of the triad is media organizations, the gatekeepers. And we'll be looking at discussing the private versus state and the influencers of the engagement algorithm. Now, who are these media organizations? They are the main gatekeeper. They are the actors. The actors are the print publishers, the television network, the radio stations, the digital editors, the social media platform algorithm, the social media influencers, and more. So the objective, if of course, is to serve public interest watchdog in practice to maintain solvency, to drive ad revenue, meaning to make profits, to remain in business, and to capture you and I's attention. So our reality is that a deeply divided public fair is that people are here. People have dissenting. They have different views. They have different conviction. Some can even die for it. And then we have state control bodies such as NTA, FRCA, which doesn't have so much impact, but they act as government PR arms. Why private giants such as Channels, TV, Arise, Punch navigate the commercial viability? In the print, we've got Vanguard doing very well online, and then the algorithmic turn algorithm, please, algorithmic. So this also help and it drives engagement. Those who have a good knowledge of how the algorithm works, what times of the day it acts better in their own favor, they begin to think heights, manipulate it. Hmm? And these are non-human gatekeepers. But when you understand how it works, you begin to use it to your advantage. So prioritize outrage, sensationalism, because algorithm respects when people are more online, when they are going to work, when they are idle in transit, when they are coming back from work, they want to relax, or during lunchtime. So the third one is the citizen, the public. Now, the public, they are the actors. The actors, again, include voters, political consumers, activists, and digital communities. Digital communities. Digital communities. Let's make this bigger. Okay. All right. I think this is bigger now. Lovely. Digital communities. So these are the citizens, they are the public, they are the common people. And it will be great for us to reflect on how these digital devices isolate certain segments of the population. Hmm? How it isolates certain segments of the population. You know, their objective is to understand governance. They want to understand how government is operating. They want to understand it. They want to comprehend how their tax money is being spent. So they are advocating for self-interest. They are expressing dissent, their views, and they are making effort to hold the public and leadership accountable. So the Nigerian reality is that we've got a very highly energetic but structurally divided citizen. We have interests, people align for different reasons, for different interests, some selfless, some selfish, some ignorant, and more. Very few are very educated to make very informed decisions. So, and I would say it's even relative, not ideologically sound. So, why urban youth leverage digital network rapidly? Vast rural illiterate populations are marginalized by several structural barriers, including digital divide. And we'll find this even in established research like Ologunwebi and Taiwo 2025. Quite very recent. But then the point is this triad, they are in constant negotiation. All right, and then we have the four phases of political media. The phase one is the pre-colonial, the print anti-colonial mobilization, the post-independent states, and of course the modern digital algorithmic era. And I'm going to stop here so we don't, I don't overwhelm you with the length of this lesson, and navigate. Take your time to sink it in, and then we'll pick it up from here in the next video, the part B of this very introductory video. If you've got questions at this time, please drop it in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from and why you're here. Cheers, and I will see you in the next video.